Qur'an, chapter 104, Surah Al Asr by Sayyid Qutb, translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. By the fleeting time indeed man is in loss, except for those who believe and perform righteous deeds, and counsel one another with truth, and counsel one another with patience. In this brief yet profound surah, comprising merely 3 verses, lies a complete blueprint for human life as envisioned by Islam. It encapsulates the essence of faith in a few concise words, painting the clearest and most precise picture of the Islamic worldview. This surah serves as the foundation of Islamic teachings, describing the true nature and mission of the Muslim community in a single verse, the 3rd verse. Such is the divine miracle that only God can bestow. The monumental truth declared by this surah in its entirety is this: throughout the expanse of time, across all ages and within the breadth of human existence, there remains only one successful path, one prosperous way. It is the way outlined by this surah, the path it describes. Everything beyond it leads to ruin and loss. By the fleeting time, indeed, man is in loss, except for those who believe, perform righteous deeds, and counsel one another with truth and patience. It is faith, righteous action, mutual encouragement towards truth, and steadfastness. But what is faith? Here we do not delve into the legalistic definitions of faith, rather we speak of its essence and value in life. Faith is the connection of this finite, fragile human being to the eternal, absolute origin from which all existence flows. It is through this connection that a person links with the universe, which too emanates from the same source. It is a bond with the laws that govern this cosmos and the forces that reside within it. In this connection, one transcends the limitations of their small self, reaching out to the vastness of the universe. They rise beyond their frail strength, tapping into the grand, mysterious energies of creation. From the confines of their short lifespan, they extend into the boundless eternity known only to God. This connection endows the human being with more than just strength, expansiveness, and liberation. It bestows upon them a deep joy in existence, a profound appreciation for the beauty within it, and a communion with the creatures whose souls resonate with theirs. Life then becomes a journey and a divine festival set for humankind at every moment and in every place. It's a sublime happiness, a precious joy, a companionship with life and the universe, like the intimacy of a lover with the beloved. Such a gain is unparalleled, and its absence is a loss beyond compare. Moreover, the elements of faith are inherently the components of noble, elevated humanity. Worship of one God elevates a person above servitude to anyone else. It establishes within them a sense of equality with all others, bowing to none but the Almighty. From this arises true freedom, the liberation that springs from the conscience, from the recognition of the ultimate truth in existence. For there is no power but one, no deity but the one. This self-liberation stems naturally from such a perception, as it is the only logical conclusion. Divine guidance defines the source from which a person derives their understanding, values, judgments, and laws, everything that connects them to God, the universe, and humanity. Thus, whims and personal interests are banished from life, replaced by justice and divine law. This connection elevates the believer's perception of their path, allowing them to rise above the ignorant values and considerations, above the earthly constraints. Even if they stand alone, they face the world with principles derived directly from God. making these principles the highest, strongest, and most worthy of adherence and respect. The clear bond between creator and creation, the distinct roles of divinity and servitude, connects this transient being with eternal truth, without complication, without intermediaries. This connection imbues the heart with light, the soul with tranquility, and the self with confidence. It eradicates doubt, fear, anxiety, and arrogance, dispelling all forms of unjust pride and false superiority over others. To walk the path desired by God, where goodness is not a fleeting accident nor a momentary impulse, but a steady flow from sincere intentions towards a divine goal. Individuals united in God work together, forming a Muslim community with a singular, clear objective and a distinct banner. Successive generations are thus linked by this firm bond. Belief in human dignity, as honoured by God, raises one's self-regard, stirring within the conscience a sense of shame from descending below the rank to which God has elevated them. This is the highest vision one can have of themselves, to be noble in the sight of God. Any ideology or philosophy that diminishes human worth, reducing them to a lowly origin, severing their link with the higher realms, only invites degradation and dissent, even if it does not explicitly state so. From this perspective, the implications of Darwinism, Freudianism and Marxism stand as some of the most grievous afflictions upon human nature and moral guidance. These ideologies whisper to humanity that every vile act, every base desire, and every despicable behaviour is but a natural expectation, nothing to be astonished by and thus nothing to be ashamed of. Such a message is a grave injustice against humanity, deserving of scorn and contempt. The purity of emotion springs directly from the awareness of human dignity in the sight of God. It is further nourished by the consciousness of God's watchful eye over the conscience and his knowledge of the innermost secrets. A sound human being, uncorrupted by the whispers of Freud, Karl Marx, and their like, would be too ashamed to reveal the stains of their conscience or the treachery of their feelings to another human. But the believer senses the gaze of God. Glorious is he, penetrating the depths of their soul, a sensation that shakes them to their core. How much more fitting it is, then, for them to purify and cleanse their inner self. The moral sense is a natural and inevitable fruit of faith in a just, merciful, forgiving, generous, loving and forbearing God, one who detests evil and loves goodness, who knows the deceitful glance of the eye and what the hearts conceal. With the freedom of will and the all-encompassing divine oversight comes a sense of responsibility that awakens in the believer an acute awareness and a deep sense of balance and contemplation. This responsibility is not merely individual, it is collective as well, a responsibility toward goodness itself and toward all humanity before God. When the believer takes a step, they feel the weight of all this, growing in self-regard and considering the consequences of their actions before making any move. For they know they are a being of significance in the grand scheme of existence, bearing a responsibility in the order of this world. Rising above the frenzied pursuit of worldly pleasures, a pursuit driven by faith, is to choose what lies with God, which is better and everlasting. Let those who strive for this. Competing for what lies with God elevates, purifies, and cleanses the soul. This is aided by the vast horizon in which the believer moves, spanning between this world and the hereafter, between the earth and the higher realms. This broad perspective calms their anxiety over outcomes and lessens their haste for immediate results. They do good because it is good and because God wills it, without being overly concerned whether the good bears visible fruit within their brief lifetime. For God, to whom all good is done, does not die, glorious is he, nor does he forget nor overlook any of his deeds. From this endless source, the believer draws the strength to continue doing good, making it a consistent way of life rather than a fleeting impulse. This strength empowers the believer to stand firm against evil, whether it manifests as the tyranny of a despot, the pressures of ignorant values, or the surge of their own desires. This pressure often arises from the individual's sense that their short lifespan is insufficient to experience all pleasures or achieve all ambitions, or from their inability to witness the distant results of goodness and see the triumph of truth over falsehood. Faith addresses this feeling in a profound and complete way. Indeed, faith is the great source of life, from which every branch of goodness springs and to which every fruit of righteousness is attached. Without it, such branches are severed from their tree, doomed to wither and dry up, and such fruit is nothing but a demonic illusion, without extension or endurance. Faith is the axis to which all the fine threads of life are bound. Without it, these threads are loose, held by nothing, scattering aimlessly with every whim and desire. Faith is the system that gathers disparate deeds, aligning them into a coherent order, where they cooperate and move in unison, driven by a clear motive and directed towards a well-defined goal. Thus, the Qur'an renders all actions devoid of this root, detached from this axis, and uninformed by this system, utterly worthless. The Islamic view is unmistakably clear on this. As stated in Surah Ibrahim, the example of those who disbelieve in their sustainer is that their deeds are like ashes blown away by a violent wind on a stormy day. They gain nothing from what they earned. Qur'an 14:18. And in Surah An-Nur, as for those who disbelieve, their deeds are like a mirage in a desert. The thirsty sees it as water, but when they approach it, they find it to be nothing. Qur'an 24:39. These verses explicitly nullify the value of any deed unless it is grounded in faith. For faith connects actions to the source of all existence and aligns them with the ultimate purpose of life. This is the logical perspective of a creed that ties all matters to God. Whoever is severed from him is cut off from all meaning. Faith is a testament to the soundness of human nature and the integrity of human composition, aligning with the natural order of the entire universe. It is evidence of harmony between humanity and the cosmos around them. When a person lives within this universe, their being must resonate with it. This resonance inevitably leads to faith, driven by the countless signs within the universe that point to the absolute power that created it in this precise design. If this resonance is lost or disrupted, it indicates a defect in the receiver, this human entity, signaling corruption that brings nothing but loss. No deed, no matter how seemingly righteous, can be genuinely good if this resonance is absent. The world of the believer is vast, encompassing breadth, height, beauty, and joy. A world so grand that in comparison the worlds of non-believers appear small, trivial, degraded, feeble, distorted, and miserable, lost in the deepest sense of the word. Righteous deeds are the natural fruit of faith, the spontaneous movement that begins the very moment the truth of faith takes root in the heart. For faith is a living, dynamic reality. Once it settles in the conscience, it seeks to express itself outwardly in the form of righteous action. This is the essence of Islamic faith. It cannot remain dormant or hidden, lying still within the believer. If it does not move in this natural way, it is either false or lifeless, much like a flower that does not release its fragrance. If the fragrance does not emanate naturally, then it does not exist at all. Thus, the value of faith lies in its movement, action, and constructive work directed toward God. It is not about withdrawal, passivity, or retreating into the depths of one's conscience. Faith is not merely good intentions left unrealized, it is action, a force that transforms life from within. This is the distinguishing feature of Islam. It is a major constructive force at the very core of life. This makes sense, as faith is the connection to the divine way, which itself is a constant, continuous movement within the heart of existence, directed by divine wisdom, aiming toward a specific purpose. The leadership of faith in humanity is a leadership that realizes this movement, aligning with the very nature of existence, a clean, good, building and constructive movement worthy of a path that originates from God. As for the mutual enjoining of truth and patience, it portrays the image of the Muslim community, distinct, unified in purpose and bound by a shared commitment. This is a community that understands its identity and recognizes its duty. It knows what it is called to through faith and righteous deeds, including the leadership of humanity on the path of faith and righteous action. This mutual enjoining among its members strengthens them to bear the great responsibility. Through the word enjoining and its meaning, nature and essence, the image of a cohesive and united community emerges. A community that is good, aware and steadfast in upholding truth, justice and righteousness. This is the highest and clearest form of the chosen nation. And this is how Islam envisions the Ummah: strong, aware and committed to guarding truth and goodness, mutually enjoining one another to truth and patience in an atmosphere of love, cooperation and brotherhood, as the word enjoining in the Qur'an so vividly conveys. The enjoining of truth is essential, for upholding truth is arduous, and the obstacles are many: selfish desires, the logic of self-interest, societal pressures, the tyranny of oppressors, the injustice of the unjust, and the corruption of the wicked. Mutual enjoining serves as a reminder, encouragement, and a sense of shared purpose and brotherhood in bearing the burden and responsibility. It amplifies individual efforts as they interact and multiply through mutual support. It reassures each guardian of truth that others are with them, enjoining, encouraging, standing by them, loving them, and not abandoning them. This religion, being the truth, can only be upheld by a cooperative, enjoining, supportive and united community like this. Likewise, enjoining patience is necessary, for maintaining faith and righteous deeds and guarding truth and justice are among the most challenging tasks an individual or community can face. Patience is required. Patience in striving against one's own soul and others, patience in enduring harm and hardship, patience in facing the arrogance of falsehood and the insolence of evil, patience with the long journey and the slow progress, the obscured signs and the distant end. Enjoining patience doubles the capacity for endurance, as it instills a sense of shared purpose, common direction and mutual support, filling the community with love, determination and perseverance. It awakens the meanings of brotherhood, which is where the true life of Islam flourishes and manifests. As we reflect today on the principles laid down by the Qur'an for the life of the successful, victorious community that escapes loss, we are struck by the immense loss that envelops humanity everywhere on this earth, without exception. We are horrified by the misery that humanity endures in this world, even before the hereafter, by their tragic turning away from the goodness that God has bestowed upon them, and by the absence of a righteous, faithful authority upholding truth on this earth. Meanwhile, Muslims, or rather those who claim to follow Islam, are among the furthest from this goodness, and the most averse to the divine way that God has chosen for them, the constitution he has laid down for their ummah, and the only path he has drawn for salvation from loss and ruin. The very lands from which this goodness first arose have abandoned the banner that God raised for them, the banner of faith, to cling to nationalistic flags that have never brought them any good throughout their history. They had no mention on earth or in heaven until Islam came and raised this banner for them, a banner that belongs to God alone, bearing his name alone, marked by his sign alone. Under this banner, the Arabs triumphed, led humanity for the first time in their history, and guided it to righteousness, strength, awareness, and salvation. A leadership that was unparalleled in their history and in the long history of humanity. In his insightful work, What the World Lost with the Decline of the Muslims, the esteemed scholar Abu al-Hasan al-Nadwi reflects on the remarkable and unique leadership of the Muslim world in history. Under the chapter, The Era of Islamic Leadership, Muslim Leaders and Their Characteristics, he writes, the Muslims emerged and took the helm of the world, displacing nations that had misused their leadership of humanity. They led humanity forward with a swift, balanced, and just course, possessing qualities that qualified them to lead nations and ensure their happiness and success under their guidance. First, they were people of a revealed book and divine law, not crafting their own rules or legislations from mere whims, for that is the source of jahiliyyah, error and injustice. They did not stumble blindly in their conduct, governance or dealings with people. God provided them with a light by which they walked among others and a law by which they ruled. Is he who was dead, and we gave him life and made for him a light by which to walk among people, like one who is in darkness, never to emerge from it? And God said, O you who believe, be steadfast in your devotion to God, bearing witness to justice. And let not the hatred of a people prevent you from being just. Be just, that is nearer to righteousness. And fear God, for God is fully aware of what you do. Second, they did not assume leadership without first undergoing a profound moral and spiritual education, unlike most nations, individuals, and government officials of the past and present. They spent long years under the tutelage of Muhammad, peace be upon him, who nurtured and disciplined them, instilling in them asceticism, piety, chastity, trustworthiness, selflessness, fear of God, and a disdain for seeking power or authority. He said, By God, we do not appoint to this work anyone who seeks it or is eager for it. And they always remembered the verse, That home of the hereafter we assign to those who do not seek superiority on earth, nor cause corruption, and the best outcome is for the righteous. Thus, they did not rush to attain positions or appointments, let alone promote themselves for leadership, endorse their candidacies, or spend wealth in pursuit of it. If they assumed any responsibility over the affairs of the people, they did not see it as a prize or gain, nor as a reward for the wealth or effort they had expended. Rather, they regarded it as a trust upon their shoulders and a test from God, knowing that they would be held accountable by their sustainer for both the great and the small. They constantly recalled the words of God. Indeed, God commands you to render trusts to whom they are due, and when you judge between people, to judge with justice. And it is he who made you successors upon the earth and raised some of you above others in degrees to test you through what he has given you. Third, they were not servants of a race or messengers of a particular nation, striving only for its welfare and believing in its superiority over all other peoples and lands. They did not emerge to establish an Arab empire where they could revel and take pride under its protection, nor did they seek to replace the rule of the Romans and Persians with the rule of the Arabs and themselves. Rather, they rose to bring humanity out of servitude to creation and into servitude to the Creator alone, as Rabi ibn Amir, the envoy of the Muslims, declared in the court of Yazdegerd, God has sent us to deliver people from worshipping creation to worshipping the Creator alone, from the narrowness of this world to its vastness, and from the injustice of religions to the justice of Islam. To them all nations were equal and all people were equal. All humans are from Adam, and Adam was created from dust. There is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, nor of a non-Arab over an Arab, except in piety. O humanity, we created you from a single pair of a male and a female, and made you into nations and tribes so that you may know one another. Verily, the most honoured of you in the sight of God is the most righteous. When the son of Amr ibn al-As, governor of Egypt, struck a Copt and boasted of his noble lineage, saying, "Take this from the son of the most honoured," Umar ibn al-Khattab retaliated and said, "Since when have you enslaved people when their mothers bore them as free beings?" These leaders did not withhold their knowledge, faith or moral refinement from anyone, nor did they consider lineage, colour or homeland in their governance. They were like a cloud that spread across lands and encompassed all people, like the showers of a rain cloud that both the plains and the hills praised, benefiting all according to their capacity and righteousness. Under their rule and in their care, nations and peoples, even those previously oppressed, were able to gain their share of religion, knowledge, refinement and governance. They contributed alongside the Arabs to building a new world. In fact, many individuals from these nations surpassed the Arabs in various virtues, and among them were leaders who became the crowns of the Arabs and the masters of the Muslims, such as the great scholars, jurists, and hadith narrators. Fourth, man is both body and soul, possessing a heart, mind, emotions, and faculties. He cannot find happiness, success, or rise in a balanced and just manner unless all these forces within him develop in harmony and are nourished properly. A righteous civilization cannot exist unless a religious, moral, intellectual, and physical environment prevails, one in which man can easily attain his human perfection. Experience has proven that this can only be achieved when the leadership of life and the management of civilization are in the hands of those who believe in both the spirit and the body, who are perfect examples of religious and moral life, and who possess sound, discerning intellects and true beneficial knowledge. Under the title, "The Era of the Righteous Caliphate as a Model of Righteous Civilization," he writes, "And so it was. We know of no era in history more complete, more beautiful, or more radiant in all aspects than this era, the era of the righteous caliphate. In it, the strength of the spirit, the ethics of religion, and the wisdom of knowledge combined with the tools of material progress to nurture the complete human being. In this era, a righteous civilization emerged, one of the greatest governments the world had ever seen, a political power surpassing all others of its time. And yet, it was a civilization where the highest moral ideals reigned supreme, where noble ethics guided the lives of the people and the systems of governance. In this era, ethics and virtue flourished alongside commerce and industry, and moral and spiritual advancement kept pace with the expansion of conquests and the splendor of civilization. Crimes diminished, wrongdoings became rare, despite the vastness of the empire and the multitude of its inhabitants. Relations between individuals, between the individual and the community, and between the community and the individual, all improved. It was an era of perfection, beyond what any human could have imagined or envisioned. These are but glimpses of that blessed period when humanity thrived under the shade of the Islamic constitution, whose principles are laid out in Surah Al Asr, and under the banner of faith carried by a community devoted to faith, righteous deeds, mutual counsel in truth, and perseverance. But how distant is that golden age from the state of loss that humanity endures today, in every corner of the world? How far it has strayed, burdened by defeat in the eternal battle between good and evil, blind to the great good that the Arab nation once brought to humanity when it carried the banner of Islam. That banner, once lifted high, now lies at the tail of the caravan, and the entire caravan, now wandering aimlessly, is engulfed in loss and ruin. All the banners once raised high have fallen to the forces of darkness, with not one banner left for God. All are now for falsehood, with none for the truth. All are for blindness and error, with none for guidance and light. All are for loss, with none for salvation. Yet the banner of God remains, awaiting the hand that will raise it again and the nation that will march beneath it toward goodness, guidance, righteousness, and success. This is the nature of gain and loss on this earth. Yet, great as it may be, when compared to the stakes of the hereafter, it seems small. There, in the eternal life, in the realm of truth, lies the true gain and the true loss. There, in the long stretch of time, where one may attain the ultimate perfection destined for humanity, or fall to the depths where one's humanity is nullified, reduced to less than a stone in worth and without the peace a stone possesses. On that day, when a person sees what their hands have sent forth, and the disbeliever cries out, "Oh, would that I were dust!" This surah is decisive in outlining the path. It is loss, except for those who believe and do righteous deeds, who counsel each other to the truth and to patience. There is only one path, no alternatives. The path of faith and righteous action, the path of the Muslim community that upholds mutual counsel in truth and patience, standing united to protect the truth with the provision of perseverance. It is a single path. That is why any two of the companions of the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, whenever they met, would not part until one had recited to the other Surah Al Asr, then greeted him with peace. They pledged to one another to uphold this divine constitution. They pledged to one another in faith and righteousness. They pledged to counsel each other in truth and patience. They pledged to be guardians of this constitution and to be among the nation that upholds it.